A stranger stood up in the middle of a crowded bank and announced that I was robbing my own mother. "Ma'am, step away from her," he said to me, loud, calm, like he'd rehearsed it. "That woman has dementia. She doesn't know what you're making her sign. My mother is 81. She has Alzheimer's. I'd brought her in to close a CD that was funding her memory care, something we did together because I promised her, back when she could still make promises, that I'd never handle her money behind her back." The teller froze. The manager came over, and the man kept going. "Her name is Eleanor. She told me her daughter lives in Arizona and never visits. This woman showed up out of nowhere a few months ago." I laughed because it was absurd. "I'm her daughter. I've been her caregiver for 2 years. Then the manager leaned down and asked my mom gently, "Ma'am, do you know this woman?" And my mother looked at me, really looked, marred, and said, "Where's Walter? Walter is my dad. He died 3 years ago." "Is this your daughter?" the manager asked again. Mom's hand started shaking. She takes me places," she said. "Not yes, not my name. She takes me places." The man nodded like a doctor confirming a diagnosis. Security called the police. They put us in separate offices, and I could hear my mother through the wall asking strangers where Walter was, getting more scared every time nobody answered. Somewhere behind me, someone had started recording. An officer asked me the same questions 4 times. Power of attorney, at home in a folder, proof of guardianship, at home. Anything on me besides a driver's license with a different last name than hers? No. I got married. That's what happens. Then the officer stepped out, came back, and said the words that made my stomach drop. "The gentleman knows a lot about her. Her maiden name is Voss. She lived on Birchwood for 40 years. Her husband died of a heart attack. She had a little dog named Peanut." He paused. "He says there's a burn scar on her right wrist, from canning peaches." "There is. I was 10 when it happened. I was in the kitchen. For one horrible minute, I doubted my entire life. Did my mother know this man? Was he some old friend? Why did a stranger know about the peaches?" A detective arrived, ran the man's ID, and everything turned inside out. His name wasn't what he'd given the bank. He'd been flagged in 2 states for elder fraud. And then the detective asked me a question that put it all together. "Last year, before you took over her finances, were there withdrawals you couldn't explain?" "There were. Gift cards, wire transfers, almost $6,000, back when Mom still lived alone." I'd blamed the disease. It wasn't the disease. It was him. For 8 months, he'd called her nearly every day, pretending to be an old colleague of my dad's, helping her with paperwork. She was lonely and fading, and she told him everything. Birchwood, Peanut, the peaches. He didn't know her. He'd harvested her. When I changed her number and moved her in with me, his mark vanished. So he found her. In his car, they found printed photos of my mother at her senior day program, a notebook with a list of widows' names, and a copy of a complaint he'd filed with Adult Protective Services the week before, calling himself a concerned family friend. The bank scene wasn't an outburst. It was a plan. Get the state between me and my mother, then slide back in as her advocate. He walked past the office in handcuffs, and the kindly concern was gone from his face. He looked right at me and said, "She would have given it to me anyway." I stood up so he'd have to say it to a daughter and not a chair. They released us with apologies. He's facing fraud and stalking charges, and 2 other families have come forward. A woman from Ohio called me. Her father's name was in that notebook. She just kept saying thank you. A few nights later, Mom had one of her clear moments. "That man at the bank?" she said. "He wasn't Walter's friend, was he?" "No, Mom." "Good," she said. "I never liked how he asked about money." She'd known. Some part of her had always known. Most days now, she doesn't remember the bank. Some days she doesn't remember me. But every night she falls asleep holding my hand, and whether or not she can say my name, she knows exactly whose hand it is.